What would you do if someone begged you for help to save their life? Would you turn away, or would you step up? This is the story of Marcus Wellington, a millionaire who thought money could buy him everything except a clear conscience. And Sarah Chun, a waitress whose dying wish would change both their lives forever. Marcus Wellington owned half the restaurants in downtown Chicago. His expensive Italian shoes clicked against marble floors as he walked through his empire. Gold watch gleaming, designer suit perfectly pressed. But behind those cold blue eyes lived a man who had forgotten what it meant to be human. On a rainy Tuesday evening, Marcus decided to visit Romano's, one of his upscale restaurants. He wanted to check on business, make sure everything ran smoothly. The rain drummed against the windows as he settled into his usual corner table, the one that gave him the perfect view of everything and everyone. Sarah Chun had been working at Romano's for 3 years. 28 years old, single mother of a 7-year-old daughter named Emma. Every night, she served tables with a smile that could light up the darkest room. But tonight, something was different. Her hands shook as she carried the heavy trays. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cool air conditioning. "Are you okay, Sarah?" asked Maria, the other waitress working that shift. Sarah forced a smile. "Just tired. Long day." But it wasn't tiredness. Sarah had been hiding a terrible secret for months. The doctors had given her news that shattered her world. Stage 3 cancer. Without immediate treatment, she had maybe 6 months to live. The surgery would cost $150,000, money she would never have. You see, Sarah had been saving every penny for Emma's future. College fund, better apartment, a life away from the struggles she had known. But now all that money would barely cover the first round of treatments. As Sarah approached Marcus's table, her vision blurred. The room started spinning. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed right there on the polished floor. The tray crashed down, sending glasses and plates flying everywhere. Marcus looked down at her with annoyance. "Great, just great. This is exactly what I needed tonight." Other customers rushed to help. Maria knelt beside Sarah, checking her pulse. "Someone call 911. But Sarah grabbed Marcus's expensive pants with her trembling hand. She looked up at him with desperate eyes. "Please, I need help. I'm dying. I have cancer, and I can't afford the treatment. You're my boss. Please, I'll work extra shifts. I'll do anything." Marcus stared down at her. Do you know what he said? He pulled his pants away from her grip and stepped back. "That's not my problem. I run a business, not a charity." The restaurant fell silent. Everyone stared at Marcus in shock. Even the kitchen staff had stopped cooking to watch this moment unfold. "But sir," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I just need a chance. Alone. I'll pay you back." Marcus straightened his tie. "Security, please escort this woman out. She's disrupting my customers." The paramedics arrived and took Sarah to the hospital. Marcus finished his meal like nothing had happened. He went home to his mansion, slept on his silk sheets, and woke up the next morning thinking he'd handled the situation perfectly. But then, something happened that would change everything. 3 days later, Marcus received a call from his lawyer. "Mr. Wellington, there's been a development. Your mother's will has been contested." Marcus's mother had passed away 5 years earlier, leaving him her entire fortune. But now, a woman named Helen Chun was claiming to be his mother's long-lost sister. She had documents, birth certificates, family photos. "This is ridiculous," Marcus snapped. "My mother never mentioned any sister." "Well, sir, Mrs. Chun has quite a compelling case. She's requesting a DNA test. If she's proven to be your mother's sister, she could inherit half the estate." Marcus's blood ran cold. Half his fortune? That was impossible. He drove straight to the law office to meet this Hellenchen person. When he walked into the conference room, his heart nearly stopped. Sitting across from him was an elderly Chinese woman with kind eyes and gentle hands. But what shocked him most was the young woman beside her. Sarah Chun, the dying waitress from his restaurant. "Hello, Marcus," Helen said softly. "I believe you've already met my daughter." The room spun around Marcus. This can't be happening." Helen opened an old photo album. "Your mother and I grew up together in the same foster home. We were like sisters. She helped me when I came to America with nothing. When I was pregnant and alone, she gave me money to start over. She made me promise to never contact your family unless there was an emergency. Sarah looked at Marcus with those same desperate eyes. My mother never told me about Aunt Margaret until last week. She said if anything ever happened to me, to find her family. To find you. Marcus felt the walls closing in. You're my cousin? Yes, Helen said. And Sarah is your second cousin. The daughter I raised alone after her father left us. The lawyer spread out the documents. Birth certificates, letters between the two women, photos of Marcus's mother and Helen as teenagers, the DNA test results that had just come in. It was all real. Helen Shun was indeed his mother's sister, and according to the will, she had the right to claim half the estate. Marcus stared at Sarah, the woman he had refused to help, the woman whose desperate plea he had ignored. His own family. I don't understand, Marcus whispered. Why now? Why didn't you come forward before? Helen's eyes filled with tears. Because Margaret made me promise to only reach out if there was a life or death emergency. I kept that promise for 30 years. But when Sarah got sick, when she told me about working at your restaurant, I knew I had to break my silence. Sarah coughed, and Marcus could hear how weak she had become. I didn't know who you were when I asked for help. I just knew you were successful, and I was desperate. The lawyer cleared his throat. Mr. Wellington, Mrs. Chun is entitled to claim $50 million from the estate. However, she's made an unusual request. Marcus looked up. What kind of request? Helen reached across the table and took his hand. I don't want your money, Marcus. I want you to help Sarah. Use what would have been my inheritance to pay for her treatment. Give her the chance to live, to raise her daughter. But that's $50 million, Marcus said, his voice barely a whisper. And what's $50 million compared to a life? Helen asked. Compared to giving a little girl her mother back. Marcus looked at Sarah, really looked at her. For the first time, he saw past the uniform and the desperate plea. He saw a young mother fighting for her life. He saw someone who worked 3 jobs to support her daughter. He saw someone who had never asked for anything until she had no choice. The cancer, Marcus said quietly. How bad is it? Sarah's voice was barely audible. The doctors say if I start treatment this week, I have a 70% chance of beating it. But without treatment. She didn't finish the sentence. Marcus stood up and walked to the window. Outside, people hurried past on the sidewalk, each one fighting their own battles, each one carrying their own stories. What happened next shocked everyone in that room. Marcus turned around and looked at his family, his real family, the family he had never known existed. Helen, I can't take $50 million from you, but I can do something else. He pulled out his phone and called his bank. This is Marcus Wellington. I want to set up a medical fund. $200,000 immediately, and whatever else is needed for ongoing treatment. Sarah started crying. Marcus, you don't have to. Yes, I do, he said firmly. Not because of the money, not because of the inheritance, but because you're family, and family takes care of family. But Marcus wasn't done. Over the next 6 months, as Sarah went through her treatment, something beautiful happened. Marcus started visiting her in the hospital. He met Emma, Sarah's daughter, a bright 7-year-old who drew pictures of rainbows and gave them to the nurses. Marcus found himself looking forward to these visits. Emma would tell him about school, about her friends, about her dreams of becoming a doctor to help people like her mom. And slowly, Marcus began to remember what it felt like to care about something more than money. Sarah's treatment was successful. The cancer went into remission. But the real miracle was watching Marcus transform from a cold businessman into a caring family member. He helped Sarah open her own restaurant, not as an employee, but as a partner. He set up a college fund for Emma. He started a foundation to help other families facing medical emergencies. You know what's funny? Sarah said to Marcus one evening as they watched Emma play in the park. You saved my life twice. What do you mean? First, you paid for my treatment. But then, you gave me something I never had before. A real family. Marcus smiled. I think you saved me too. I had everything I thought I wanted, but I had nothing that actually mattered. Helen, now in her 70s, became the grandmother Emma had never had. She taught her to cook traditional Chinese dishes and told her stories about her great-aunt Margaret. One year after that fateful night at Romano's, Marcus stood in the same restaurant. But this time, he wasn't checking on business. He was celebrating. Sarah was officially cancer-free. Emma had made honor roll. And Marcus had learned the most important lesson of his life. You see, Marcus had spent his whole life believing that success meant having more than everyone else. But that night, when he refused to help a dying waitress, he learned that real success means having people you're willing to help. The funny thing about kindness is that it has a way of coming back to you. Marcus thought he was just paying for medical treatment. But what he really got was something money can't buy. A family, a purpose, and the knowledge that sometimes the best investment you can make is in another person's life. Today, Marcus still runs his restaurants. But now he also runs the Sarah Chun Foundation, which has helped over 500 families pay for medical treatments. Emma is now 8 and wants to be a doctor. Sarah is healthy and happy, running her own successful restaurant. And Marcus? He's learned that the richest people aren't those who have the most money. They're the ones who have the most love. Sometimes life puts people in our path not by accident, but by design. Sometimes the person asking for help isn't just a stranger. Sometimes they're family. Sometimes they're a chance to become the person we were meant to be. What would you do if someone asked you for help today? Would you turn away like Marcus did at first? Or would you remember that kindness is the only currency that truly matters? The choice is yours. But remember, you never know whose life you might change. And you never know how changing their life might change yours.